All right, so here we go. Here's section 1.4. 1.4, which is lines. So the stuff we did in the first part of the course was review, right? It was review 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was review of basic and intermediate algebra real quick, super quick, huh? And now we're diving into more advanced college algebra, actual college algebra stuff. That's why it's chapter 1. It's 1.4 college algebra. So, thank you. So, okay, so basically it's all about lines. So this is section 1.4, all about lines. They're giving us a line right there, and they're asking us to find the slope of that line. How do we find the slope of that line? Do you remember how to find the slope of lines? Anybody remember? What is slope? Rise over run. Good. You remember that? Yeah. Rise over run. Slope is rise over run. So can you look at that picture? I think I might have a bigger version. Yeah, there we go. So here, this is question number 1. This is section 1.4, all about lines. Yeah, so slope, rise over run. This might help to look at this bigger picture of it. So can we look at that line and figure out rise over run?
Yeah.
How do we do it? What's the rise? What's the run? What's the rise? So how exactly do it? Should I look? Do you realize what you got to do is you got to pick 2 points, huh? So you got to pick 2 points. They've got 2 points kind of already for us. Let's just go with those 2. So between any 2 points will work, though. It doesn't have to be those 2. I'll just grab those 2. So between those 2 points, what's the rise and what's the run? It goes up 1. That's the rise, huh? And then it goes over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the run. So the run is 5, the rise is 1. Does everybody see that? So from point to point, to get from the middle point to the end point, you go up 1 and over 5. And by the way, we're talking jumps and not lines. It's an easy mistake. I made it I remember I was in high school biology. We're doing some graph thing, and I remember the very nice teacher coming over and helping me and saying to me, no, Brett, we're counting jumps, not lines, right? It's easy to look and go, well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. We're not counting lines. That's the mistake I made. We're counting jumps, right? We're saying it jumps 1 jump, 2 jump, 3 jump, 4 jump, 5 jumps. So we're counting jumps. How many gaps? How many jumps? Yeah, so it goes up 1 jump and over 5 jumps. So its rise is 1. Its run is 5. Yeah, so there we go. 1 over 5. So the slope of that line must be 1/5. By the way, what if we had picked a different point to start? Like, what if we had started back here and went to the middle instead? Would it have been anything different? We go up 1. Up is positive, right? And right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right 5, same thing. Positive 1 over 5. So it really doesn't matter the 2 points you pick on the line. The line is just always doing that. That's his steepness. That's his slope. He's always going up 1 and over 5. Up 1 and over from point to point to point. He just always, that's how he rolls. He goes up 1 over 5, up 1 over 5, up 1 over 5 forever. That's the steepness of that line, the slope of the line. So you can pick any 2 points you want. The slope is 1/5. Okay, what else do they want from us? So the slope is 1/5, rise over run. And then it says, interpret the slope. For every 5 change in x, for every 5, that's sideways, right? Over 5 on the x. Remember, that's the x, and the up and down is the y. Remember that graphing kind of stuff? So for every 5x, for every over 5, the change in y is what? 1. That's right. They're saying for every 5 x's, see, run is x and rise is y, because rise is up, and the y values go up and down, and run is x sideways, like how we run on the ground sideways. And rise is up and down. Yeah. So they're saying for every 5 change in x, there's a 1 change in y. There's an up 1, isn't there? So they're just helping us to scope that out there. Want to try number 2? Can you find the slope of number 2 there? I don't know if I can make it any bigger. It's not any better, is it? We'll just go with that one. So in going, I'll just start here. I'm actually going to show it both ways, but let me start with this one. So starting right there, how do you get to the other point? You got to go one jump to the right. And you know that to the right is positive, and to the left is negative, huh? And up is positive, and down is negative as we move on the right, left, up, down. So right one, that's plus one. Oh, and slope, let me, it's rise over run. Let me write that for a second. So it's rise over run. So it's plus one on the run, because the run is the sideways, like a person runs on the ground sideways, and then rises up, down. Okay, so one to the right. And then how many down? 1, 2, 3, 4 down. So it's going to be -4 rise and a +1 run. -4 over +1. Rise over run. And what is that fraction? Can we reduce that fraction? Yeah. So yeah. 1 negative and 1 positive, we know that just means a negative answer, huh? 2 negatives would make a positive answer, wouldn't it? But 1 negative is just negative, and 4 divided by 1, anything divided by 1 is just itself, huh? Right? 1 goes into 4 times, right? So it's just 4. So the answer is just -4. They want you to, we never leave a 1 on the bottom. So whenever you have a 1, you have to simplify. Get rid of that 1 from the bottom. So the answer is just -4. That's the slope. Hey, what if I had started the other way? Let's go back. What if I had said, well, I'm going to start with this point first. Would that change my answer? No, it'll be the same. Watch. But you got to remember, up is positive, down is negative, right is positive, left is negative. As long as you're good with that, you can go anywhere you want. So let's start here first. I'll go up 1, 2, 3, 4. That's up 4, so it's positive, huh? Up. That's positive. And then where do I got to go from there? Left 1. And what is left? So -1. So rise over run in that case. Rise over run. What did I rise? Up 4. And what was my run? Backwards 1. So rise plus 4. Run back 1. Positive over negative. -4 divided by 1. Same answer. Isn't that beautiful? I like that about math. As long as the logic is good, the answer will come out. Doesn't matter what your style is. It just follow logic, and you can go either way you want. So you can start with either point. It doesn't really matter. Just go over and up, over and down, or up and back. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you know right is positive, left is negative, up is positive, down is negative. And that's the true slope of that line. That slope is -4 over 1. It goes down 4 for every 1 it goes over. All right. If you're good, I'll move along to number 3. So number 3, more of this graphing stuff here. And they're saying plot the pair of points and determine the slope of the line containing them, and then graph the line. So first off, it wants you to put those dots on the graph. Do you remember how to do that? Can you take, the first one is -3, 2. Can you draw a little axis system on your paper there? And find that, and then find the other point, which is what, 5, -4 points. So starting from the middle, go. Remember the first number is x and the second number is y. This is the x-axis and the y-axis. Remember how that works? So the first number is sideways, isn't it? And then the second number is up, down. Remember all that? So the first number, go back 3 and go up 2. There it is. Back 3, up 2. There's the first dot. So from the middle, back 3, up 2. And then the other one is from the middle, over 5, 3, 4, 5. Over 5 is +5, huh? Down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So right there, over 5, down 4. There's that dot. We good on finding those two dots? Remember the x and the y coordinate stuff? And then it says, what is the slope of the line that connects those two? So if I connect these two with a line, I'll do the best I can. My lines aren't so straight. Yeah, it's actually not too bad. All right, so that line, what's the steepness of that line? What's the slope of that line? How can we figure that out? Can you do it? You know how to do it, right? Just go from the one point to the other point, count rise over run, and that'll be your slope. You can start with either point. Got you. Okay, so let's give it a try. So I'm going to start with the top point, doesn't really matter, and get to the bottom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to the right. So remember slope is rise over run. So let me write that. Slope is rise over run. And so I just went 8 to the right. Is that rise or run? Run, because that's sideways, right? You run sideways. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. That's down 6. That's rise, huh? Like that. Now, we're going to need to reduce that fraction. So, yeah, right, because you know they're both divisible by 2, huh? Divide by 2, divide by 2. Minus 3/4. That's the slope of that line. Yeah. Number 4. Now they're giving us a point. Probably too small to see, huh? Let me make it bigger. Minus 6, minus 4, and M3. Now, what's the M3 thing? Do you know what M stands for? Slope. Yeah, M is the letter they use for slope. Why don't they just use S? M? Why in the world do they use M? Well, I've got the answer if you really care to know. After 20 years of teaching algebra, somebody actually told me I had a guy from France in one of my classes. A bunch of the original algebra stuff was written by French people back in the 1700s. And he said, oh yeah, in French, I guess there's some word, mountainous, it's some French version of mountainous, which actually is their word for slope. So, is that really interesting to you? And there we go. So, it always bugged me, like, why are they using M? They should use S for slope. But it comes from a French word that means slope. So anyway, M, so whenever you see M, it's slope. It always means slope. So, they're telling us there's a point minus 6, minus 4. So, let's find that point first off. So we start at the middle. We always start at the origin. Starting from there, remember the first number is always over because it's x, and the second number is always up, down because it's y. So starting in the middle there, I'm going to go over negative 6, so back 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then from there, I'm going to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there we go. There's the point. Back 6, down 4. So we found that dot. Okay, great. So we got the dot. Now what do they want me to do? Well, they want me to, starting from that dot, then use the slope number 3 somehow to make the line. Well, how am I going to do that? What am I going to do with that slope? This is slope. Whoops, sorry. Where'd I go? Did the whole thing just go away? I just hit a funny button. There we go. All right, so this is slope equals 3. M is the same as slope. So it's slope equals 3. So how can I use that slope? First off, why does the slope only have one number? I thought slope was supposed to have 2 numbers, rise and run. Why is it only one number? Because it's over 1, right? Because 3 is, so whenever they just give you one number, you can, 3 divided by 1 is the same as 3, and now we have a rise and a run. Good. Okay, so now I just do that, don't I? You guys know what to do, huh? You just say, well, there's my rise, there's my run. So just start at that point, and then, let me get this stuff out of the way. Now that we've found the point, from that point, go up 3 over 1, huh? Rise over run. So go up 3, 1, 2, 3, over 1. So right here has to be another point on the line, doesn't it? Does that make sense? And then you just connect the dots. And there's your line. So do you see what I did there? I went up 3 over 1 to find that other point. So I started with the point they gave us, back 6, down 4, bulk, put my dot, and then then they gave me slope, so up 3 over 1. Those 2 dots, that line has a steepness of 3, doesn't it? 3 over 1. That line goes up 3 over 1. That line would keep going. If we went up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, you can just keep going and going. That line just keeps going up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, from point to point to point to point, forever. Is that good? Is that making sense what they want you to do? Now, so let's try number 5. Let me write it bigger for you. Number 5 is basically saying start with the point, back 1, down 2, and then slope negative 2/3. All right, so try that. Same kind of thing. Find the first dot with the point, and then we'll do the slope from there. Yes, so the first point, so starting from the middle, the origin, starting from right here, so it's back 1. Remember, this first number's over, the second number's up or down, right? First number's X, second number's Y. First number, back 1, down 2. So there it is, back 1, down 2. There's the dot right there, back 1, down 2. We good? You can see that fine print there. So back 1, down 2, boom, there's the dot. Now, how do we find, so that's one dot. Now we're going to do the slope to find the other dot. But here's my question. What are we going to do with that negative? Does that mean negative 2? Or does that mean negative on the 3? Or is it both? Is it just on one? Both? Or one or the other, or both? Not both? Why not both? Very good. Exactly right. Does everybody realize that? When you have a negative on a fraction, that can't be both. Because what is 2 negatives? That'd be positive, huh? That can't be right. Well, then what do? You put it on either the top or the bottom. It doesn't matter which one, but don't put it on both. Because then you've made it positive, which it never was. Does that make sense? We'll run into this a lot. So a negative in front of a fraction goes on the top only or goes on the bottom only, but not on both. So my habit is I just stick it on the top. So I'll just pop it up there in the top. But just make sure you don't put it on both. You can put it on the bottom if you prefer, but don't put it on both. Yeah, good. So that's our rise over run. So let's do that. So from where we're at then, we're going to, from our dot, we're going to rise negative 2. How do you rise negative 2? Down 2. And run positive 3. There's no sign as it must be a positive 3, huh? That means to the right 3, doesn't it? So I'm going to go to the right 3. So 1, 2, 3, to the right. And there is my other dot. And then we can connect the 2, or Math-Excel will do it automatically for us, with a straight line. There we go. So I went back 1, down 2 with my first dot, and then from there I did the slope, which is negative 2 over positive 3. Down 2 over 3. Questions I can answer on that? Remember all that stuff? Good? All right, on we go. So number 6. So they're giving me a point, P, which is 5, 5, and an M of 0. Let me let you try that one. Start at the 5, 5, right? From the middle, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. So there's our first dot right there at 5, 5. Good so far? Now from there, how do we find the second dot and make the line? Well, what do you do when the M is 0? Do what? Just make a straight line? Can I give you a hard time? Aren't all lines straight? But I know what you mean. You mean like straight sideways, huh? Yeah. Or straight up and down. Right, I know. I'm a weird math teacher. I like that weird math joke. Because everybody always says that. But you're totally right. I know what you mean. You mean like straight sideways or straight up and down. Yeah, which one is it?
Straight sideways.
Is it straight sideways? Isabella's onto it, right? It's a straight sideways or up and down line. She says sideways, and she's right. It's a perfectly sideways line. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, so you can either just kind of like memorize that. That's a great job. Or you can just say, look, isn't it the same as 0 over 1? That'll work too, right? And remember, this is rise over run. Remember, you can put any whole number. If it's not a fraction, just put it over 1. And so what kind of line doesn't rise, right? 0 rise, a perfectly flat line, huh? No rise to it. So that's exactly correct. So from this point, you just go up 0, okay, I did, and over 1. So there's the second dot, and so just 1 to the right, and so therefore the line must be right through those two. It's a perfectly flat line. Right. A slope of 0 is a perfectly flat line. Everybody see what we did then? Over 5, up 5, and from there, up 0, over 1. So in other words, straight over 1. Flat line. 0 slope. All right, try number 7. So they're giving you a point again. 1, 5. So start with that one. And then they're saying the slope is undefined. See if you remember what that means. Okay, so we start with 1, 5. So from the middle, go over 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right there is our dot. So that's the dot over 1, up 5. Good, so there's our first point. Now, what in the world do we do with slope undefined? What's that? What's that? Is that the same thing as 0? So is it another flat line going through there? Anybody know? It's not a flat line. It's the other kind. What's the other kind? Straight up and down vertical line. Yeah, undefined means it's a vertical line. Yeah, so slope undefined means a vertical line. So it's got the point over 1, 5, and then you're going to have to put a line straight down through it. Yeah, vertical line is undefined. You know what undefined means? It's actually the opposite of 0. It means like infinity. That's what we're really saying. When we say undefined, we mean it's too big to be a number. It's basically infinity. We can't even give it a number. So it's the opposite on that. Brian?
So when the slope is undefined, it's vertical. When the slope is 0, it's horizontal.
Every time. So when the slope is 0, it's always a flat line. So let me just write that down. Slope 0, flat horizontal line. Slope undefined. Undefined means it's so huge, it's basically infinity. It's a vertical. It's a vertical line. Yep, every time. Yep. So that's a good thing to put on your 3x5 card for our second exam. You don't need it for this first exam. This is all material after our next test. Good. All right. Oh, and so on Math Excel, to do the line thing, remember you have to click 2 points. You have the first point at 1, 5, and then just click any other point straight up and down. It doesn't matter where. Just click any other point straight up and down. It'll make the line vertical for you. All right, on to number 8. Using the graph, find the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. Okay, it's time to do equations of lines. So, does anybody remember the equation of a line? How it works, Brian? Exactly, good memory. Y equals mx plus b. Is anybody? Oh, we've already talked about the m, huh? What's the m? Slope. That's slope because it was a French word. And anybody know what the b is? No, slope is rise over run. So what's the b? Y-intercept. Yeah, it's the Y-intercept, meaning it's where the graph hits the y-axis. Let me write that. It's where the line hits the y grid, the y-axis. Yeah, so y equals mx plus b. The m is the slope, and the b is the y-intercept, where your line intersects the y-axis. Okay, so is that picture big enough for you to see, sort of? Looking at that picture, let's try to write. They've already got the y here for us. So they've got the y equals. So can we tell the slope of that line? It's pretty hard to tell. It's pretty tiny. Sorry, guys. I'm sure you could see it. If you could see it, you could do it. I'll just help you. It's over 1, down 1, 2. So it's over 1 and then down 2. So what's the slope going to be then? Remember, slope is rise over run. Yeah, so -2 over +1. In other words, just -2. Right? Because we never leave ones in the bottom of a fraction. That's considered unsimplified. So we get rid of that. So it's just -2. Yeah, so the slope is, that line's going over 1, down 2, over 1, down 2 all the time. So that's the slope. So that's right here, isn't it? So 2x plus or minus or whatever. What's the b now? What's the y-intercept? Can you tell? I mean, it's pretty small if you can see it. So can you see where that blue line runs into the y-axis? Remember, the y-axis is the one that goes up and down. So we're talking about that point right there, huh? That's the y-intercept. That's the b. I'll put b. And I have no idea why they use the letter b. Maybe it's some other French word, but it means y-intercept. So what is it? Yeah, it looks like -3, huh? -3. So 2x minus 3, done. We got the equation of that line. So how do you get the equation? You got to find the slope first off, and you know how to do slope. Rise over run. We got that. -2 over 1, so it's just -2. And then we found out where the line runs into the y-axis at down 3. So that's your b, 2x minus 3. So that works only when y is alone. Do you see how y is alone in that equation? In a little bit, they're going to start mixing the y in other places. But so far, so good. Y is alone. Isabel.
So do you just take the negative of the slope?
For this. Oh, I know. That was my mistake. Thanks. No, I just blew it. Thank you. -2x minus 3. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, I just lost it on accident. Slope is -2. So it should be -2x minus 3. Good. Other questions or comments on that one? Okay, let's try number 9. They're giving me slope and point. So let me make that bigger for you. What's the slope? Slope is -5, 6, -6. -5, 6, -6. Okay, so now there's no picture. There's no graph, no picture. They're telling me the slope, and they're telling me a point. And what they want is the equation, I think. Let me go back and double check. They want the equation of the line. Yeah, right. Okay, that's what we got to do. All right, so I'm just going to give you like a whole formula, like a whole method for doing this. Because this time there's no picture, we can't do anything from the picture, so we just have to use equations. So how do you do it? Well, I'm going to do a way that's a little different than most people do. I've just found it's easier for students over the years. So you remember the slope formula? Slope is a rise over run, as we've talked about. But has anybody seen the version of the slope formula like this? Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Have you seen that before? Yeah. So that's a slope formula. That's the same thing as rise over run, if you think about it, because the difference in y values, that's a rise, because, it's y, it's up, down, it's rise, and x values, that's sideways, so that's run. Anyway, so that slope formula, we'll use that a fair bit. So I'm going to use it here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a simpler version of it. I'm going to write slope equals, and instead of the y2, y1, x2, x1, I'm just going to put plain y and plain x and leave blanks. So it's a simple version. So I just use a simple version of the normal slope formula. I found this is easier for students over the years because it's like the regular slope formula, which a lot of people know about. Except it's simple. Just leave blanks at the back. Plain y, plain x, none of this y2, y1 stuff. Okay? And then you just take the information they gave you and you plug it in. What do I mean? I mean you grab this slope of -5 and that'll go right there because that's slope. So it'll be -5 equals. And then on the other side, you just grab this point. And remember, these two numbers, they're going to plug in to go behind the x and the y, where the blanks are, the y minus blank and the x minus blank. And where do you think the first one goes? Behind x or y? Yeah, how do you know it's x? Because x has always come first, and then y. It's always alphabetical order, just like in the alphabet. Right? W, X, Y, Z, right? X comes before Y in the alphabet. That's all. They just, no deeper reason than that. So that'll go right there, 6. And the Y value will go next to Y, which is a -6. So you got double negative going to become positive there in a minute, huh? Everybody see what happened then? So I'm just using the normal slope formula, except it's a simple version with plain y's and x's and blanks. Just pop the x and the y in the back of the x and the y and the slope on the slope side. So now I need to solve that equation for y. You can tell, let me come back over here and show you. Number 9, see how they have y alone right there? So they want me to get y alone, huh? And then I'll be done. So let's go back and do that. So how do you get y alone in that equation? What do you do when you have like a whole number on one side and a fraction on the other? Put the whole number over 1 and go diagonal, diagonal like that. You seen that before? And it becomes minus 5 times y plus 6. Right, that double negative right there is going to become plus. Oh, wait, what am I doing? I'm sorry, guys. I'm spacing out. You're supposed to go with this guy down to that guy, huh? These two are supposed to be x minus 6. There we go. And then these two go together, 1, and there's the y plus 6. So everybody see what I did? That's called cross multiplying. When you have two equal fractions, just go diagonal, diagonal, and then you just lay them flat. Right? Just minus 5 and x minus 6, and 1 and y plus 6. Like that. And then we can distribute through the parentheses. And we'll get minus 5x plus 30. And this one's going to be y plus x. And we drop the parentheses, right? When something from the outside multiplies in, we drop off the parentheses. Good so far? We're almost there. We're just one step away. Bring it over here for that last step. Okay, so y is saying, I want to be alone. Get rid of this 6, huh? Because y doesn't matter right side, left side. Let's just get rid of the 6. So subtract 6 from both sides. Gonzo. Y will get his wish and be alone. Then that'll be minus 5x. What's that? Plus 24. And we're done. We did it. Y is alone. That's the answer they want on that one. Running over it again one more time. So what we did is we started up there by writing the slope formula. That's a simple version of the slope formula with plain y and plain x in the front and blanks at the back. And then you just plug in the slope into the word slope on the left and the x and the y behind the x and the y in the fraction where the blanks are. And then you diagonal, diagonal, cross multiply and get y alone. So you'll be able to, put that little formula on your 3x5 card for exam number 2. Questions on that one? And we'll practice it a bunch of times in the next 45 minutes probably. Good? Yeah. So yeah, right here, you would just type in minus 5x plus 24, because they've already got the y for you. So let's try that, huh? Number 10, slope. Is that a negative or is that an equals? I can't tell. Yeah, it is. Okay, slope negative 2/5 and then negative 10/6. Negative 2/5, negative 10/6. So number 10. Slope negative 2/5 point. Was it negative 10/5? 6. You don't remember either? It was negative 10/6. Yeah, negative 10/6. Okay. Yeah. Negative 10/6. There it is. Okay. All right, try that one. So start with that same formula. Slope equals y minus blank over x minus blank. Right? And grab the slope and plug it in the left. Grab the x and put it in the back of the x, and the y and put it in the back of the y. See what's going to happen here? So the slope is, what do we do with the minus sign that's on a fraction? I just stick it in the top, don't I? So I'll make it minus 2 over 5. Everybody good there? And see how there's built-in subtraction symbols to the slope formula already there? That's in addition to whatever signs come when they're plugged in. So I'm going to plug in a negative 10 here and a regular 6 there. See the double negative down there? So that's going to become positive, isn't it? Everybody see that? What's happening there? So these two is going to be positive. So then now next step when we do the diagonal thing, it'll be minus 2 times x plus 10, won't it? And 5 times y minus 6. Everybody see that? Is that good? Just be real careful with your signs. See how I make my signs pretty big? I'm a pretty sloppy writer. But I don't make a lot of mistakes. I make things big with lots of space. That'll help you. So, okay. And now let's distribute. Minus 2x minus 20. Boom and a boom. 5y minus 30. We good to there? Now, they're going to make us do something different at this point. Let me show you. So everybody good to there? Questions to that point? Okay, now, what do they want from us? Well, if you come back here, they say, here's number 10. They say, type your answer in general form. Notice they don't have a y equals there, do they? What do they mean by general form? General form, I'll write it maybe over here for you. General form means a number times x plus a number times y equals a number. So in other words, they don't want y alone like we did on the last problem. So you got to watch. Sometimes they want y alone. Sometimes they want general form. So general form just means number x, number y, number. Like that. And with the x's and the y's on the left together instead of just y alone on the left. So they're saying general form. Okay, so what does that mean then? Well, that means I got to jump things around. Now, remember when something jumps over the equal sign? Like the old nursery rhyme when the cow jumps over the moon? When something jumps over the equal sign, it switches its sign. Remember that? So I want to grab this 5y and have him jump this way so that he'll, because I need x, right? I need the x's and the y's on the left, don't I? That's the form they want, the general form. So when he jumps over there, he's going to become a negative 5y. He was a regular 5y on the other side. And also, I need this minus 20 to jump to the other side, and he becomes a plus 20, doesn't he? Now, that's just a shortcut. I hope that doesn't seem mysterious to you. That's the same thing as just adding 20 to both sides, right? Do you see that, guys? That's the same thing. What would happen if I added 20 to both sides? It would get rid of that, and there'd suddenly be a plus 20 on the right side. See how it's just the opposite sign?
So basically, you just flip it.
Yeah, I'm just switching those two and changing their signs. It's just a shortcut for adding the 20 to both sides and subtracting, right? Same thing with the 5y, right? I would subtract the 5y from both sides, right? That would get rid of that one and put a negative 5y on the left. See how it's exactly the same? It's just quicker. Just to jump over the equal sign and change the signs. Okay, so we're to here. What does that give us? Minus 2x minus 5y. What is this? 20 minus 30? Negative 10. Bring it up here. So minus 2x minus 5y is negative. Now usually, they might take that answer. I don't know. They normally like the front to be positive. So is there something I can do to both sides of that equation to make the front positive? Multiply through by negative 1, huh? Negative 1, negative 1, negative 1. That'll make it plus 2x, plus 5y, plus 10. There we go. That's the form they want. That's called general form. A number x, a number y, a number, and they like the front number to be positive. So I just multiply both sides of the equation by negative 1. You can always do the same thing to both sides of an equation, huh? If they're equal, treat them the same, still going to be equal afterwards. And there we go. This one, they're back to wanting the y equals. So number 11, they give us an x-intercept of 5, a y-intercept of -6, and they're saying find the equation. Whenever they say those magic words, find the equation, that's when you're always gonna use your slope formula thing. So when they say that's the phrase that'll help you. It's slope equals, y minus blank over x minus blank. So whenever they say those words, find the equation, you think, okay, I'm going to use slope equals y minus blank over x minus blank. All right, and now I need to plug in some x's and some y's and some slopes. But actually that's a little tricky, isn't it? So we have to be clear what an x-intercept is and what a y-intercept is. What does that mean? Like if you were to do a graph, you don't have to make a graph, but I think it might help you. If you were to do a little graph real quick. Let me move that up a little bit. If you were to do a little graph, and you're just, okay, x-intercept 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's hitting the x-axis. That's an x-intercept of 5, isn't it? That's sitting on the x-axis at 5. And y-intercept -6, so -1, -2. This is the y-axis, huh? -4, -5, -6. There it is. There's y-intercept of -6. Everybody good with those two dots? So this is the y-intercept. This is the x-intercept. That's what they're talking about when they say x-intercept and y-intercept. They mean a point on the x-axis intersecting the x-axis and a point intersecting the y-axis. Which means there's actually two numbers there, isn't there? Like what are the coordinates of this point? From the origin, say, how do you get to that point? You go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up 0. That's 5, 0. Isn't it? And then what about this point? How do you get to that point? You go over 0 and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 0, -6. Notice both those intercept points actually have the other coordinate 0. Of course they do, huh? Because they're on the grid line. They're on the grid line. So this x-intercept has a y of 0, it's up 0, and this one has an over of 0, right? It's x is 0. So my point is, intercept points always have another number with them that's 0. So you don't have to draw the graph every time. You could just look at this and go, look, x is 5, it must have a y 0 with it. This one is a -6 for y, remember, because y is at the back. It must have a 0 of x with it. And you'd be right. Those were the two things. See how I did that? I knew this was x, so that was 5, so the other one must be 0, and the other one was y, -6, the front one must be 0. Okay, great. So what? Well, with all that, we can now get the slope. Let me go back to the old slope formula. This one's not an easy problem. The y1 minus y2, x1 minus x2. Because we first need the slope on this one. We need the steepness, the slope, between those 2 points. Okay, so how we going to do that? Well, this is well, I'm running out of room here. Put it right here. This point right here is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. So that's what we mean by x1, y1 and x2, y2.
So for this one, we use the x instead of the simple.
Yeah, I'm going to use the slope formula right here. So x1, y1, x2, y2. So remember, whenever you have two numbers with a comma, the first is x, the second is y. So the slope between those, then, is going to be y1, 0 there, minus y2, -6, over x1, 5, minus x2, 0. Plus 6 over 5. So the slope between those 2 points must be positive 6 over 5. Did you see what I did there? I just used the slope formula. This is another important formula to have down that you'll need on the second exam, the slope formula. The difference of y's over the difference of x. That's the same as rise over run. Y's are rise, x is run. So subtract the 2 y values, 0 minus 6. Remember, there's built-in subtraction symbols built into the formula. And so then if in addition you plug in a negative number, like we did here, we get the double negative positive thing, right?
I thought it was x2 minus y1, and then x2 minus x1.
So the x's have to go together and the y's have to go together.
But I thought they were like switched. I thought it was y.
Oh, the 2's in the front and the 1's in the back?
Yeah.
It works that way too. Oh, did I do it the other way a minute ago? Yeah, it works great. Yeah, good question. Thanks. Yeah, it works the same either way. Let me prove it by going back and doing it that way. Good job. Y2 minus Y1. Yeah, you're right. It is normally written that way. I'm being too casual. So let's do it that way. It'll work exactly the same. Y2, negative 6, minus Y1, 0, over X2, 0, minus X1, 5, which is what? Negative 6 over negative 5 and 2 negatives. See how the answer came out the same? Isn't that beautiful? That's what I like about math. As long as you're following the truth, it'll work out. Yeah, good question. Thank you for bringing that up. You can actually do it either way. But yeah, it is normally written that way, isn't it, with the 2's in the front. So positive 6. So we got a slope, but we're not done yet. That's like half the battle. These problems are long. So that's the slope. Now let me get rid of this stuff. Now that we have the slope, now we come over here and we're going to write the slope formula a second time. But this time with the blanks. No more x1, y1, x2, y2. Just blanks in the back. The way we've been using it. So notice I'm using the slope formula twice on this problem. Once with all 4 numbers plugged in. Y2, y1, x2, x1 to get the slope. And then once I got my hands on a slope, then I plug back in. Do you see why, guys? If you go back over here, see how this last one, they just handed me a slope right in the beginning? They said, here you go. Here's a slope. So I didn't have to do that first part and find my own slope. Do you see that? They just handed it to me, so I went right to the formula with the blanks in the back. But on number 11, things are harder. They didn't hand me a slope. They gave me intercepts, and then I changed that into 2 numbers, 2 points, and then I used the slope formula to find my own slope. So that's all groundwork, initial work. Now, use that, plug in the slope over here. What's the slope? That's the 6/5 that we just spent all that time finding. Y minus x minus. Now, what goes in the back of x and y? Either point. I'm going to grab this. You could grab the 5, 0, or you could grab the other one. Either one will work fine. So I'll grab this x value and that y value. Put the 5 in the back here and the 0 in the back there. Everybody see that? You have 2 points. You can use either one. You have more than you need. So I'm going to just grab that one and put the 5 in the back of the x and the 0 in the back of the y. Like that. And so what do we get now? 6/5 is y over x minus 5. And go diagonal, diagonal. Remember where we're at now? Do you see that y minus 0 just became y? Because y take away nothing is just y, right? See what happened there? Now we cross multiply. 6 times x minus 5 is 5 times y. Diagonal, diagonal. Am I losing you? You see what happened there? Y take away nothing is just y, isn't it? And then I go diagonal, diagonal. And I'm almost done. See on this one, they want me to get y alone on this one, they said. They want y alone. So let me distribute here. 6x minus 30 is 5y. What do I do to finish getting y alone? There's the wall. Y saying, I want to be alone. What do we do to get y alone? Divide by 5. All the way through. So, y equals 6/5 x minus 30 divided by 5 is 6. And there we go. All right, let's... All these ones that say those magic words, find the equation. Let me kind of summarize this for you. All these ones that say find the equation, what it means is that eventually, well, step one, you've got to find the slope. You've got to find the slope somehow. And that could be that you use m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Find the slope. Step two, then plug in slope and x and y to the formula slope equals y minus blank over x minus blank. Step three, cross multiply. Cross multiply on that one. So do they want, let me see, on this one, well here, go back to there. Here we go. So, yeah. Cross multiply and maybe get y alone. If that's what they want. If they want y alone. Well, let me not say maybe, but y alone. Yeah, let me just leave it at that. Good enough. All right, so there's the general steps that's required whenever they say find the equation. So if they say find the equation, you need to think about those three things. Now, the first step is find the slope. We don't always have to use that formula. As you saw in some of the other problems, we didn't use that formula. They just gave us the slope. But that is the first step, to make sure you have the slope. So what is the slope? Do we have the slope on? So step one, find the slope. Do we have the slope on this one? Do we know the slope for some reason? We do. What's telling us the slope? Something's speaking to us. Do you hear it? He's speaking. Yeah, that's talking, and he's telling you about a slope. Horizontal line has what kind of a slope? Yeah, flat line. Remember how we talked about earlier back here? Wherever it was, I don't remember now. Somewhere back here. It was right here. Yeah, slope equals 0 for a flat line. Slope is infinity or undefined for a vertical line, huh? Yeah, so if they tell us flat line, meaning horizontals. Flat is the same as horizontal, isn't it? Horizontal line, flat line, slope is 0. So basically getting back to this problem, they're telling us horizontal line, m equals 0. We don't have to do any calculation. They're handing us the slope is 0. Okay, great. We've got the slope 0. So now we can go to step 1. So we don't need to do anything else in step 1. Go on to step 2. So there's step 1. So now step 2. Plug the slope and y and x into the formula. Slope equals y minus blank over x minus blank. Can you plug your stuff in there now? Plug in your slope on the left side and take your x and y and plug them in behind the x and the y. And then step 3, cross multiply. Solve for y. 0. So we'll plug in a 0 right there. And now the 8, remember it's always x first and then y, isn't it? It's always alphabetical. So watch out when you plug them in. So this x is going to go there. The 8's going to go there. And the 9's going to go there. It's just natural, but wrong, to grab the first thing and put it in the top. That'd be wrong, huh? The first thing's an x and it has to go on the bottom, doesn't it? X in the back of x, y in the back of y. Shantina?
When you cross multiply.
Yeah, so yeah, let's go to the cross multiply step now. So this is going to be 0 over 1, right? The slope is 0. And remember, whole numbers, we just put them over 1, don't we? We did that. That's not the first time today, right? Any whole number, just put it over 1. Okay. Then here we go. We're going to cross multiply, diagonal, diagonal. So 0 times x minus 8 is 1 times y minus 9. Good so far? Right, I'm just going diagonal, diagonal. And what is 0 times anything?
0.
This is 0. Bye-bye x, bye-bye 8. And 1 times y is y, and 1 times 9 is 9. Last step, we need to get y alone. Yeah, just jump the negative 9 to the other side. Remember when things jump, when the cow jumps over the moon, when things jump over the equal sign, they switch signs, don't they? So just grab that minus 9 and chuck him over there. It becomes a plus 9. Y is plus 9. Or you could have just added 9 to both sides. Same thing. Y is plus 9. That's our answer. Well, let's go back and see it on number 12. I know you guys don't have the notebook this time, but there it is. Yeah, the equations are real simple on this one. That's all there is, because the x vanished because that 0 times x made it go away. All right, to 13 we go. So 13 is y equals, find the equation line parallel, okay. Find equation of line parallel to y equals minus 13x. And the point is 8 minus 9. All right, so remember the 3 steps. Let's go back. First step, find slope. Okay. So what does it mean for 2 lines to be parallel? What do you think about their same direction, huh? What do you think about their slopes? How steep one line is and then the line parallel to it? Same slope, huh? Parallel means same slope, doesn't it? Parallel lines have the same exact slope. Okay, great. So what? Well, look at so they're talking about 2 lines here. They're saying find the equation of some line, and by the way, this line that we're looking for is parallel to this other line. This is some other line. That's not my line equation. That's some other line, and my line's parallel to that one. Make sense? So let's look at this one for a minute. Y equals minus 13x. It doesn't, remember how equations are y equals mx plus b, right? And there's no number back here, so b must be 0, right? Anyway, that doesn't really matter. The minus 13 is what I really care about. What is that minus 13? It's the slope, because it's in the m spot. Remember, when you have an equation with y alone, the number next to x is the slope, automatically. So if you have an equation with y alone, the number next to x is the slope. So that minus 13 is the slope of that other line, and my line is parallel to that one, so my line's the same slope. So what's my slope? Also negative 13. So our slope, so that tells us, step 1, find the slope. What's our slope? It must be negative 13. Do you see that? That's what this was talking to me about. That's why they gave me that information, so that I could have a slope. So that's some other equation. His slope is negative 13 because when y is alone, the number next to x is the slope. So his slope is negative 13. Step 2, so we've got the slope. Step 2, what do you do next? Plug in to the slope equals y minus blank over x minus blank. So slope equals y minus blank over x minus blank. So the slope right here, negative 13, that'll go on the left side. Negative 13 equals y minus blank over x minus blank. And how do you know what goes in the back of x and y? Well, yeah, the point they gave us. Here's the x, here's the y. Can you put them in the back and cross multiply? Whip it out here. So the x goes in the back of x, the y goes in the back of y. See the double negative? What's a double negative going to do? Become positive. Then how do we handle this? We put over 1, we step through, we cross multiply, right? So we go diagonal, diagonal. Minus 13 times x minus 8 is 1 times y plus 9. Everybody see what happened there? On that? All right. And then distribute. Minus 13x plus 8 times 80, 24. Isn't that 104? Choose your calculator. 80 and 24. Yeah, 104. And distribute y plus 9. So we're almost there. Last step. Y saying, I want to be alone. So what do we do to get y alone? Minus the 9. Boom. Y is alone. Like he's always wanted to be. So that's what? Minus 13x. What's 104 minus 9? Isn't it like 95? There it is, minus 13x plus 95. We got the equation. So you see how it's the same 3 steps every time? They just give you different looks. They try to juke you out, give you different looks. But you just get a slope, plug into the y minus blank over x minus blank formula, cross multiply, and get y alone. All right, I'll move on, if you're good there, to number 14. Number 14, parallel, okay, find the equation, just a whole bunch of these. Find the equation. That's why I gave you a game plan, because they're going to give you a bunch of these. Find the equation, here we go. Parallel to x equals 18, and going through the point, negative 3, 7. All right, I'm going to help you with this. And so, remember the 3 steps. What's our first step? Slope. Find the slope. Now, this is going to be a tricky one. It's going to be about this fact right here. They're comparing to some other line. They're saying, hey, it's parallel to this other equation, and the other equation is x equals 18. The other equation is x equals 18. Well, that's a weird equation. I mean, where's the y? Why doesn't it have like a y and an x? What a weird looking equation. It is. It's a weird one. Let me bring it down here and do a quick little graph of it. Do you know what it looks like when it only has an x and it doesn't have a y? You don't have to do the picture, but I think the picture will help you. It'll stick with you. Well, you just say, well, this is the x-axis, right? And this is the y-axis. So it must be over here at 18. On the x, I'm just going to say that's 18. I don't got room to count every square. So let's say that's 18 over there. And that's all we got, huh? It's just on the x-axis at 18. So you just make a line going through the x-axis at 18. Straight through. There it is. There's a line going straight through the x-axis at over 18. That's what that graph must be, huh? Doesn't have a y anywhere. It just has that. So, okay, great. So it's a straight up and down line. So who cares? Actually, we care a lot, huh? Why? What does that tell us? What are we trying to find right now? We're trying to find our slope. What do we know? What's the slope of a line going straight up and down? Undefined. Remember that back here? There's been a lot of information, but back here somewhere. Did I go by it? Yeah, there it is. Slope undefined for vertical lines. Undefined. Undefined for vertical lines. That's weird. So that means it's undefined. So the slope's undefined. So what is undefined? Can we just use 0? No. That's the whole point. Undefined is like infinity. It's like infinity. It's not 0. You can't use 0. Well, I don't even have a number. Right. So we cannot use, the slope as a number, right? Because it's not a number. It's undefined. It's infinity. So what am I going to do? How can I even use the equations? We can't. So cannot cross multiply. You can't do that normal way we do things. I'm just saying a bunch of what we cannot, son. We cannot cross multiply because we don't even have a number. Infinity's not a number. It's undefined. Well, what are we going to do then? Well, let's stop and think. If this is some line, there's that line, x is 18. And they said, what did they say about our line? Our line is what? Parallel to that one. So what kind of line do we have? Well, a line that goes straight up and down. Like I don't know, maybe it's, right there or something. So this is like our line, right? And that's the other line. So our line must be parallel to that one. They said so. So our line must be straight up and down. Okay, great. So what? Well, then that means our line is just an equation like x equals a number, just like that one was. Do you see that? See how that other vertical line equation only has x? Lines that go straight up and down only have x. They don't have y at all. Right? X is 18. That's a line going through the point over 18. So vertical lines only have x. Okay, so it's just x equals a number. There's no y at all, yeah? And, well, what does x equal? How in the world do we know what x equals? Any ideas? Do you see any x value on the entire screen? Right there. Here's our x. -3, game over. That's it. No equations, no cross multiplying. Why? Because it's infinity. It's undefined. It's not a number. You just go, oh, it's parallel to that one. Must be a vertical line. It's a vertical line. It only has x. There's the x value, right? They say it goes through the point, -3, right? Like this point right here, which is -3, 7, right? Back 3. There it is. It's just x is -3. So that was a weird one, huh? On we go to number 15. They're going to get even more interesting. All right, same kind of words again. Find the equation. And this time they're going to use the fancy word perpendicular. Perpendicular to -6x plus y equals -32. Okay, so, and then probably a point, yeah, and they're going to give me a point. 0.63. Okay, so this is a challenging one. So what does perpendicular mean? Remember what that means? Perpendicular means if one line's going like that, the other's going like that. It means they meet at 90 degrees. That's perpendicular. Like an intersection, if you're driving down the road, you come to a signal light, the two streets are running opposite directions. They're perpendicular. They meet at 90 degrees to each other. They make a T. So that's perpendicular. And that perpendicular, what does that mean about the slope? Does anybody remember from their earlier algebra days? The slope is upside down and opposite sign. Upside down and opposite sign. So everything's opposite about it because the line going in the opposite direction. So that means you flip the fraction and you change the sign in the front. If it was negative, you make it positive. If it was positive, you make it negative. Flip it and change the sign in the front. So I say, okay, so that's what you have to do on this problem. And that's all just step number 1. Step number 1, remember, we're supposed to find the slope. Right? I'm trying to do step number 1 right now. Well, how am I going to find the slope? I have to take that other equation. Let me bring it over here. minus 6x plus y equals minus 32. And I'm going to get y alone to find his slope. Now, this is not my line. This is some other line, and my line is perpendicular to that line. Is this making sense? We're comparing lines. So I've got to get y alone to find his slope. So how do I get y alone? So take this equation and get y alone. Y is saying, I want to be alone. So what do? Take that minus 6x and jump it. It becomes a plus 6x, right? When things jump over to the other side, they switch their sign. All right, I got y alone. Remember y equals mx plus b? So what's the slope? It's that 6, that plus 6. Slope of the other line. That's now still, again, this is still not my line. I'm still working with the other equation. Right? So I took the other equation, I got y alone, and the slope is plus 6. Okay, great. So that's the slope of that other line. So what's my slope? My line's slope equals, so this is 6 over 1. You switch the sign and flip it. Right? Change sign and flip because it's perpendicular. That's what they said in the beginning. They said our line is perpendicular to that line. So I took that other line's equation, got y alone, found his slope, and then flipped him and made it negative instead of positive. So our slope must be negative 1/6. All of that is step number 1. All of that was the work to find our slope. This is college algebra. So we got our slope. So now, having gotten our slope, now we can go on to step 2. Remember what step 2 is? You go slope is y minus blank over x minus blank. You grab your slope. Now that we know our line slope, pop it in there. So that'll be and I put the negative on the top. Remember what we always do with negatives. Over y minus blank over x minus blank. And you put the x and the y numbers in the back. Where are the x and the y numbers? They're way back here. Yeah, the x is 6, the y is 3. So the x is 6, the y is 3. Pop them in there. What do we do on step 3? Cross multiply. So diagonal, diagonal, bring it up here. Negative 1. Negative 1 times x minus 6 is 6 times y minus 3. And now what do? We distribute negative x plus 6, distribute 6y minus 18. Y, let's just get y alone. So what do we do to get y alone? Very end, right? We always get y alone at the very end. Not always, but often get y alone at the very end. Add the 18. Gonzo. 6y is what? Minus x plus 24. Can you read that? It's getting kind of small down there. Last step to finish getting y alone. Divide by 6. Remember when we divide all the way across. Boom. There we go. Y is minus x over 6 plus, what's 24 divided by 6? 4. There it is. Minus x over 6 plus 4. It's a lot of work on that one. So they're giving me, so we're changing gears. That's enough with the find the equations. We're kind of done with that, which is nice. It was a lot of work. So number 16 here is take that equation, find the slope and the y-intercept, and then graph it. How do you find the slope and the y-intercept? What do you got to do? Remember, we got to get y alone, because if you get y alone, then you got mx plus b, and the m is the slope, and the b is the y-intercept. That's how you find the slope of the y-intercept. You just get y alone. So we need to get y alone. So that's what you do when they tell you to find the slope and the y-intercept. You think, oh, they're just saying get y alone. Because if I get y alone, the slope and the y-intercept will be right there, right in front of my eyes. So I say, oh, okay, I can do that. So let me bring it over here for a minute. X plus 4y is 4. Here's the wall. Y is saying, I want to be alone, please. Get rid of all this stuff that's hanging out with me. So let's start with the, what do we get rid of first? The x. Subtract x from both sides, or just jump it to the other side. It'll be a negative x either way. So that'll be 4y is negative x plus 4. Is that good? You always put the x's in the front. You don't have to, but it's traditionally, it's how you'll usually see it. So put the negative x in the front like that. Or you could have just jumped it to the other side. It would have become a negative x. Same thing. Last step to get y alone. Divide. Remember, when you divide all the way through all of them like that. Okay. These cancel. Y equals negative x over 4 plus 1. 4 divided by 4 is just 1. So there we go. We got the y alone. So what? They've been asking me, what's the slope? And what is the y-intercept? So the slope is whatever's next to x. So what's next to x? Good, yeah. There's really an understood 1 up there, isn't there? An invisible 1. So the slope is negative 1/4. There's that whole fraction next to x, really. Right? Negative 1/4. And what's the y-intercept? Yeah, it's just the 1. And from that information, can we graph this thing? We can. Let's graph her. So I'm going to graph it. I'm going to make a graph. So to graph, we need 2 dots. Right? We're going to graph the straight line. We need 2 dots to graph the straight line. How are we going to find the first dot? Let's start with the y-intercept. What is that'll tell you where your first point is, your first dot. Y-intercept 1. Remember, this is the x-axis and the y-axis. So y-intercept 1, that's right there, isn't it? Up 1, you know, it's like that. This is 1, negative 1, negative 2, 2, 3, 4, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, etc. Right? So just the y-intercept of up 1, positive 1. And then from there, how do we find our second point? The slope, which is what over what? Rise over run. Remember, slope is rise over run? So I'm going to use slope, which is negative 1/4. But what do we do with a negative sign on a fraction, remember? Yeah, put him on the top. Or the bottom, but not both. My habit is just to put it in the top. And that is rise over run. So that means starting from the first point, the dot that's up 1 here. Starting from this dot, I then march off the slope. Down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll be your second dot. Does that make sense? I got my first dot is the y-intercept up 1, and then I go down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. There's the second dot. Connect the dots. You got your line. There it is. Math Excel will do that part for you automatically. Just click the 2 dots and it'll make the line for you. There we go. We graphed the lines. Everybody see how we did that? So again, I start with the y-intercept. At up 1, the graph intersects the y-axis, right? And then I do the slope, down 1 over 4. Because the negatives go on the top, don't they? Rise over run. So rise negative 1, down 1, and over 4. Run over 4. Questions on that? Is that good? A little easier than some of that other stuff? Let's see, let's try number 17. So they're going to give us a 2x minus 3y is 6. They're going to say the same thing. They want the slope first off, and then they're going to want the y-intercept after that, and then they want you to graph. All right, give it a go. So we got to get y alone. So take this equation, 2x minus 3y is 6. Y is saying I want to be alone. So we just grab the 2x and jump it to the other side. Right? So the negative through a. So the 2x jumps to the other side becomes a minus 2x, doesn't it? And you put the x in the front, the minus 2x in the front. And then last step to get y alone, divide by negative 3. And so y equals 2 negatives here. Positive 2/3 x. Positive over negative, negative 2. Right? 2/3 x minus 2. So this is the slope. This is the y-intercept. So the slope is 2/3. The y-intercept is negative 2. Now for the graph. All right, let me give you a second. So rise over run. Start here though. Y-intercept negative 2. This is the y-axis, the x-axis, so it's right there, isn't it? Negative 2. There's our first dot. So first dot comes from the y-intercept down 2. It's just straight down the y-axis 2. On the y-axis, the y-intercept. And then from there, we march off the slope, rise over run. So go up 2 over 1, 2, 3. There's the second dot. Connect the dots. We got our lines. We went up 2 over 3. And we got it. So it's a long section. 18. X equals negative 8. They want you to find the slope and the y-intercept. And they want you to graph it. Let me help you with this one. Well, maybe you can do it. I would encourage you to start with the graph. Graph it first, and then I think the slope and the y-intercept will be obvious. What do we do to graph it? What is x equals negative 8? How do you graph? There's no y there. What do we do? Right, x, so go back 1, back 2, back 3, back 4, back 5, back 6, back 7, back 8, right there. Back 8, huh? And then just put a line straight down through it, right? Because that's all the information we got. X is negative 8. There it is. It's a line going straight through the x-axis at negative 8, isn't it? Okay, so it's a vertical line. So what's its slope? Undefined, because it's basically infinity. It's perfectly steep, isn't it? Perfectly straight up and down. It's too big to even, it's more than $1 billion. It's more than the national debt. It's perfectly straight up and down. All right, and now what's the y-intercept? Where does that line hit the y-axis? It doesn't hit it at all. You can't say 0. 0 would be a spot. Not at all. None. I don't know what their option will be. They'll give you some kind of option because it doesn't hit the y-axis at all. Does that make sense? So that one's easy. You don't have to mess around with slope formulas. All right, let's try number 19. Y. This time they have only y. You get the theme? The last one was only x. Because normally there's x and y, right? Like number 17. That was a normal one. There's x and y. That's a normal line. So if you have x and y, you're getting a line that has some kind of slope to it, right? It's kind of diagonal, slanted. But if you have only x or only y, you're going to get a line that's either straight up and down or straight sideways, aren't you? They want the slope, they want the y-intercept, and they want the graph. I would start with the graph. I think that'll make life easy. So start with the graph. So y equals, remember this is the x-axis and the y-axis. Y is negative 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. It's right there. It's the line going through the y-axis straight through the y-axis at negative 3, huh? Okay, so it's a horizontal line, isn't it? Yeah. So notice when we have only x, the last problem, only x, it's a vertical line because it goes through the x-axis. And if you have only y, it's a horizontal line, it goes through the y-axis. So what's his slope? That slope is 0. So it's not, that's not steep, is it? That's a 0 slope. Whereas the other one that went straight up and down, that's super steep. That's why we say undefined. It's like infinity. This is just 0, nothing, no steepness at all. If your friend, my head almost got you too. If your friend called you and said, let's go mountain climbing, the slope is, and you of course ask what the slope is right away, right? And if your friend said it's a 0 slope, it's just flat. It's just a walk, right? You just use sandals. So now what's the y-intercept? Yeah, where does it hit the y-axis? We'll write it -3. Right there. Boom. Hits the y-axis right there, doesn't it? We good there on that? On we go. Okay. Let me see. Number 20, 21. Let's do, okay, so 20. 9y plus 8x is 0. And same kind of thing. They want the slope and the y-intercept. So slope, y-intercept, and then graph it. Same 3 things. Try that one. Okay, so get y alone. So to get y alone, we just grab the 8x and jump him to the other side. And last step, divide by the 9. So y is minus 8/9 x. Good? So we got y alone there. So what's the slope? Yeah, this is the slope, huh? So, whoops. Okay, come on. So, slope is minus 8/9. But what's the y-intercept? Out here is nothing, 0. Right? It's the same, when there's nothing out there, it's the same as adding 0, isn't it? Remember the formula is y equals mx plus b. So the b, the thing out there is just 0. The y-intercept is just 0. Is that good? So if there's no number off to the right, then it's just like adding 0. The y-intercept is 0. So can we use that to graph it now? Let's give it a try. So where's our first point?
0.
Yeah, right at the origin, huh? That's your first point. It hits the, remember this is the x-axis and the y-axis. It intersects the y-axis at a height of 0. Boom, right at the origin. The origin is one of the points, isn't it? The y-intercept is 0. And where do we go from there to find the second point? We got to march off the slope, don't we? So the slope is rise over run. So you go down 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, down 8, and over 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There it is. There's the second point. See how the first one was the origin? Because the y-intercept was 0. And then down 8 over 9. And then just connect the dots. And there's the graph of our line. We good on that one? So I'm going to skip 21 and go to 22. Did I whip over that too quick? Any other questions on that one? Go to, because 21 is the same thing. And then 22 is a little different. Minus 3x plus 6y equals 18. And what it's going to ask you to do on part A is find the intercept. So it's going to ask you for the x-intercept and then for the y-intercept. And then it wants you to graph. Move this down. So x-intercept, y-intercept, and then graph. Okay. So, remember what we talked about earlier with intercepts? I know we talked about a lot in this last bit, but if we go back here, well, it's been a while. Let me see. It's that one way back here where they gave us intercepts. So I'm kind of back to the beginning. I went too far, I guess. Where is it? They did it on one of these. Didn't they? I think they did. Maybe I showed it over here. There it is. Yeah, number 11. So look back to number 11. Remember on number 11 we talked about intercepts, and they said the x-intercept, kind of half a race now, x-intercept is 5, and that means the point is 5, 0. And the y-intercept is -6, and that means the point is 0, -6. In other words, an intercept is just one number, but it also has a 0 with it when it comes to an actual point. An intercept has another number that's 0 with it automatically, and notice it's the opposite letter. In other words, if the y-intercept is -6 and the y value is -6, the x value is 0. And vice versa, if the x-intercept is 5, the x is 5 and the y is 0. The other letter is 0 at an intercept because it's on the grid line. So let's go crank that out. So in other words, to find an x-intercept, think about it, let me just show you, like if this point's an x, I'll just make up an x-intercept and a y-intercept. If this point is an x-intercept, right, he's on the x-axis, and the other point is a y-intercept because he's on the y-axis, just think about what that means for a minute. What could be the coordinates of this point? Isn't it over some amount, I don't know how far, but up 0? Isn't it over some number, whatever, comma, up 0? And then this point here, isn't this point, from the origin, over 0, up some number? So, remember, x value, y value, x value, y value. So in other words, for a y-intercept, the what? The x is 0. And for an x-intercept, the what? The y is 0. Do you see that? That's the very nature of being an intercept. You're on one of the grid lines, so your other number is 0. It's got to be. So, for an x-intercept, plug in. What do we know about an x-intercept? The y has to be 0. So plug in y is 0. And down here for a y-intercept, the what? Plug in the x is 0. In other words, plug in the opposite letter is 0. X-intercept, plug in y0. Y-intercept, plug in x0. All right, so let's go to it. So I'm going to plug in y0 right there. So minus 3x plus 6 times 0 is 18. That drops out. Minus 3x is 18. Divide by minus 3. So x is, what's that, -6. So that means -6 comma 0. Well, we'll just leave it x is -6. X equals -6 is where, so if I was to make this graph, I'm going to make this graph now. It's going to be back 6, isn't it? It's back 1, back 2, back 3, back 4, back 5, back 6. Right there is the x-intercept back 6. And now let's find the y-intercept. So I take the same equation for the y-intercept. -3x plus 6y is 18. And I plug in right there for x, 0. Right? So for intercepts, you plug in the opposite letter is 0. Bless you. These cancel, and we just get 6y is 18. Last step to solve for y. Divide by 6. Y is 3. So that's up at 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3. There's the Y-intercept. So there's the Y-intercept. Here's the X-intercept. So we've got the Y-intercept, got the X-intercept, and then they want us to graph them. So that's just going to connect those two dots. And there's the line. We found it by finding the intercepts. So you find the intercepts by plugging in the opposite letter of 0. So an X-intercept, plug in Y0, Y-intercept, plug in X0. Opposite letter 0. Like that.